variable speed, ECM, multi-speed, multi-stage, all these different terms. What do they all mean? We're going to talk about that right now. Hey guys, Josh from Griffin Air, serving the Middle Peninsula and the Northern Neck. Want to do a video because we've actually gotten questions about it, and wanted to just kind of run through a couple things that I hope will make sense and might make a difference in the decision to buy your next heating and air conditioning system. So essentially, I wanted to break this down into a couple different sections, if you will. And that is because a lot of times when we are talking about different options for your heating and air conditioning system, there's different ratings and things like that. And so I just kind of wanted to go through just a bird's eye view of what all those different ratings mean, what they ultimately add up to, and whether or not it really should make a difference in your decision for your next purchase. So just kind of wanted to go through a couple things. For starters, let's talk about blower motors, air handlers, furnaces, and things like that. And essentially what they all boil down to when you are looking at a proposal, whether it be from us or from another company, essentially they're going to kind of go through some different options. Hopefully, we always offer multiple options, and hopefully if you're getting other quotes or looking at another company, they're giving you a couple different options. And so those options could include a couple different things when it comes to the blower motor. So I'm going to try to consolidate that, hopefully, and make it a whole lot more sense, looking at it, through a narrow lens here. For starters, in the old days, we had and again, there's different verbiage. So I'm going to try to break them up into three different sections. So the first one would be, back in the old days, we had what would be considered today, we would call that a single stage system, single stage blower motor, single stage furnace or air handler. And essentially what that means is it has a PSC motor, okay, and there's either a on or off. There's no in between. There's, it's either running at 100% capacity or it's running at 0 capacity. It's off, And so, basically, there was never any in between. It, drew maximum amount of amps when it turned on, or it was off. There was never any in between. When it reached temperature, as long as you didn't have the setting on the thermostat turned on, the fan would turn off and it would stop, so there was never any in between. Today, we would call that a single stage system. It's probably one of the more less efficient models, if you will. If you're looking at an air handler or a furnace, it says single stage, PSC motor. Trying to think of some other verbiage for that, but essentially that is a single stage system. It's either on or off. And so you probably don't even care, but just so I get this right, PSC stands for permanent split capacitor motor. So we're going to talk about ECM motors in a moment, and that stands for electronically commutated motor. Again, that probably doesn't matter a whole lot, but again, as I said, PSC motor, single stage system, single stage motor, single stage fan, all that stuff, it's all under the same umbrella. It all pretty much means the same thing, and it really just means it's either on or it's off. There's no in between. Moving on to what I would call the second option in all of this. So again, there's three. First one is the PSC single stage. ECM motors, which would be the next step up. Essentially, all they are, again, there's different verbiages. Some companies may call it, you know, because they all like to have their own cute little marketing, pretending like they are offering something that the next guy's not. And ultimately, a lot of times it's the same thing. They're just marketing it either better or a different way, or however you want to look at it. But ECM motor is a multi-stage motor. Sometimes there's multiple speeds, and the reason that's important is you might have a system that may run in one speed for one mode, another speed in another mode, or so on. And so the thought process is that, let's say you have an ECM motor that has 4 different speeds. And sometimes there's more than that, sometimes there's less, but let's just say 4. There's a lot of in between. So it could be either running at the very tip top, you know, speed in this mode. Next mode, it might be running at a little bit of a lower speed, drawing less energy, drawing less amperage, lower electric bill. That's the thought process. And as I understand it, during the making of this video, right now it's 2019, you can still get your hands on, or at least where I'm at in the USA, in Virginia, you can still get your hands on some single stage stuff. There's actually a lot of it, you know, single stage air handlers, single stage, you know, on-off PSC motors, all that good stuff. And so during the making of this video, all that stuff is still here, but as I understand it, in the next year or two, they are moving towards, and maybe by the time you're watching this video, they're moving towards ECM being the minimum, that it has to have a multi-speed or a ECM motor, furnace, air handler, whatever the verbiage is, and that next step up, if you will, and that'll become the minimum, you know, standard. And finally, the third, or the best option today, would be what they call variable speed. It's kind of, you know, a couple years ago, variable speed blower motors, fans, air handlers, furnaces, variable speed stuff was kind of the cat's meow. It's getting to where it's more of the standard. We're seeing it more and more. We're even seeing folks go with a variable speed motor with, you know, even a standard basic install, because there is some energy savings there. And essentially, variable speed, there's, you know, different ways they're marketing it. They could be calling it, you know, who knows what they're calling it. Different companies call it different things. There's some variable speed motors that are, you know, there's a lot of in-betweens, you know. These are all steps. You know, there's the absolute top speed. It can ramp up to that. And then there's, you know, a lot of in-between, running at times a percentage of what the capability or the capacity of that system can run. And the idea is, if it doesn't need to run at 100% capacity, then it doesn't. And, you know, instead of this constant on and off spikes in energy, there's a lot of in between. Some systems will just barely come on and then just slowly start to ramp up to save energy, and so on. There's not that, you know, that jolt, that constant on-off type of deal. And then, you know, a lot of them will kind of, you know, they'll explain it in almost like this, you know, constant ramping up and down of speeds. And the hope and dream is, you know, a lot of systems right now, they will almost, some of them can even learn your home. And what it'll do is it'll learn based on the load and how long it takes it to reach temperature and things like that. And it will actually learn to, you know, if it's this temperature outside and this temperature inside, and how long it, you know, all that stuff. And instead of this constant on, off, the system comes on and off, all that good stuff, instead it will, come on and, reach temperature, and then, maybe at like 30% or 40% or whatever, and just run at a constant lower. Instead of this on off, it just run constantly. And all day, multiple hours just running constantly, but will actually in the end save you money on your electric bill, because there's never any spikes in energy, and it'll draw a whole lot less electricity. So hopefully that makes sense, but that's kind of in a nutshell your three options. Again, they're gonna, they all market it different ways. They act like they're offering something that someone else isn't. Oh no, we have a multi-speed this or that, or we have all these different names. We have this type of system, and it's so efficient. It's essentially, if you're talking about the blower speed, whether it be an air handler or furnace, you can pretty much wrap all the options, technologies into one of those three categories for the most part. Let's go through a couple others. So moving on, sometimes when you're talking about a furnace, there's other things to take in consideration when it comes to the furnace itself. And the next thing I'm going to go over is the gas valve itself, because I have seen folks get all kind of confused over, well, it's a two-stage blower and it's a this or that valve, and just what does all this mean? So essentially, I think I can make this really easy. If you listen to everything I just said about blower motors, gas valves are still very similar. The older valves were single stage valves. They were either open or closed, completely open, completely closed. A two-stage valve, it is what it sounds like. It's two-stage. Some of them even have three stages, a multi-stage valve. But again, if you're talking about, say, a two-stage valve, there's a single stage. It might only open at 70% capacity or whatever capacity it opens at, and then the second stage would be fully open, fully blowing that flame, and so on. And then now they have what's called modulating valves, or some verbiage. Again, they may call it something differently, but that kind of, just like the variable speed motors, has a lot of in between the 100% capacity and off. There's a lot of in between there with the modulating valves, and it'll learn the load and what it needs to run at to save you gas. So that's kind of gas valves in a nutshell. Next, there's tons of videos on just this phrase topic alone, and that is SEER ratings. I'm not going to get into all that, because there's SEER ratings, there's EER ratings, there's HSPF ratings, there's all kinds of different ratings. Ultimately, for the most part, on most of those ratings, they don't actually, I think there's some confusion out there where folks will hear, sort of like when you buy a car, it'll have a certain amount of gas mileage, and they kind of expect the same the same deal when they're looking at SEER ratings or EER ratings or things like that. And I think the main takeaway that I would say would be that when you're looking at those ratings, that it's hard. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's harder to nail down, you as the consumer, to nail down what each SEER number translates to dollar-wise when you're talking about, savings. But ultimately, the higher that number, the more efficient the system is. SEER stands for Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. Again, there's probably hundreds of YouTube videos. I think I might have even did one a couple years ago that just talks about SEER alone. And I'm not going to say any more about that, because that's not what this video is about. I'm trying to create some clarity on when you're seeing different verbiage, or we have competitors that will call, instead of calling it ECM motor, they might call it a multi-stage blower, or whatever it is they're using as their verbiage. So I'm trying to make this a whole lot more simple. So that's kind of SEER. Again, if you want more information about that, hundreds of videos, hundreds of websites that just talk about SEER ratings and things like that, in a nutshell. Next, let's talk about compressors. compressors or outdoor units or air conditioners, heat pumps, all that stuff is still referring to the outdoor unit. All those units have a compressor inside of it, or at least 99% of them. I think a few of the brands years ago were kind of doing some goofy things, but ultimately 9 times out of 10 your outdoor unit will be where the compressor is located. And there's different stages, different types of compressors. And I think, again, if you watched my whole little spiel about the blower motors, compressors are kind of the same. There's a single stage, just like the old days. There was an on and off. There's multi-stage compressors, some of them 2-stage, some of them 3-stage. The more stages, the idea is, if it can run at a lower stage or a lower capacity and still cool your home, then it'll do that. And then finally, there's inverter compressors or variable compressors, and that's that same idea, that same thought process. There's different technologies out there on how to accomplish that. There's some systems that are not that complicated that are able to kind of go, do that in between, and then there's some systems out there that are very complicated. And the idea is, like a communicating system, like you're talking about a Train or American Standard Platinum Series. I know that Carrier has their Infinity line, Bryant has their Evolution line, and so on. Nordyne and all their different brands, they have their IQ Drive. There's multiple different brands out there, but essentially what they're talking about is a communicating system where the indoor unit can talk to the outdoor unit using DC pulses. The thermostat can talk to all of it. You can almost kind of run diagnostics just off of the thermostat. They don't even call them thermostats, they call them controllers, because shoot, they're almost like a computer hanging on the wall. It's crazy the things that some of those thermostats can do. So again, compressors, 3 categories: on and off, multi-stage, variable speed, or inverter, or whatever verbiage they call it. I'm almost done with this video. Hopefully you've got some information out of it. Just going to touch on a couple last things. There's also AFU or AFUE ratings, and that is the rating that basically it refers back to the furnace and the gas that's being burnt or fueled in that furnace. And AFUE stands for Annual Fuel Utilization Efficiency. Essentially, again, the higher that number, the more efficient it is. And the idea is, if it's, let's say it's an 80% AFUE rated furnace, what they say is that means that 80% of the fuel that's being fueled into that furnace is being burnt, and you're losing 20% of that capacity or that fuel out of your flue. The lower efficiency models will have a metal flue because it's going to stay hot. You wouldn't even want to touch it unless it's a double walled or B-vent flue pipe. It could be very hot. And then as the efficiencies go up on that, say like a 90, 95, and so on, plus percentage furnace, the flue pipe might be plastic of some type, and it condenses inside of that and will actually drain back down and drain out of the furnace. So again, that number is essentially, the higher that number, the more efficient it is at burning the fuel that's in it. So that's pretty much it. Again, there's other ratings out there that I'm not going to talk about in this video, but I think that ultimately, as long as you understand that there's all kinds of different verbiages out there that companies are using, not just contractors, but the manufacturers are using to, just kind of, market their product and make it better or sound better than the next guy. But ultimately, as far as the technologies themselves, that's kind of a nutshell as you're comparing products, what the different verbiages mean and all that good stuff as you're making your decision. I think ultimately, if you're looking at a proposal as we speak and you're trying to decide what makes sense for your home, obviously I can't answer that. Every home is different. Every customer is looking for something different. I'm sure the more efficient the system is, the lower your electric bill is, the more happy you'll be. Whether or not you get your savings back, is a whole nother topic. Again, no house is created equal. But I will say this, all this is as time goes on and more technologies come out, by the time you might be watching this video, there might be something that has come out that I didn't even know about when I made this video. And I think ultimately, the point that I want to make is, I think there's more to it when you're making your decision than just simply saying, oh, well, this system's less efficient or more efficient than that system. And, what is the price of each and things like that. Well, I think that, some brands are better than others. So just because brand X and brand Y are both saying that they're a certain amount of SEER and they're both offering an inverter compressor or they're offering whatever it is that they're offering. Let's just say that they're both offering similar things. That doesn't necessarily mean they're created equal. I think there's many variables out there when you're considering what makes sense for your home. Where the system's made makes a difference. At least to me it does. Other variables like parts availability in the future. Why does your contractor sell the brand that they sell? And I can't answer that. I'm not going to tell, I know why I sell what I sell, but, that doesn't mean that every contractor uses the same thought process I did. Obviously they don't, because some sell brands that I don't sell. And I think ultimately that you got to make a decision on, all those variables. Other things that you might consider are price of the parts. Just because a variable speed motor is more efficient, guess what? It costs more than a PSE motor does too. If and when it goes bad, they do things just like windshield wipers on a car. Things go bad, especially when they're not taken care of. There's another variable to consider. How well are you going to take care of this equipment? Are you sure you want to buy the Cadillac and never have it serviced, never have the oil changed? It's just amazing to me how many folks don't service their equipment, and then of course they want a cheap bill when it comes time to repair it. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic, but just there's many variables as you're considering all this, and I think that hopefully I was able to shed some light on as you're comparing different brands or different different models or whatever, kind of what they all mean and what makes sense for your home. So anyway, if you're still watching this, I know that was a lot. Hopefully it helped you. And if you're still watching this, we would love to earn your business. Check us out. Check out our reviews. Our phone number is easy to remember, 5050 Air. Our website, I personally, to this day, have put everything on our website, and everything you see on the website, every picture just about that was taken, it was either taken by either me or one of my guys. Every piece of information that's on there was either written by me personally, or it was information that I was able to get, say, from the manufacturer, and I read it and made sure it made sense for what I wanted to be on our website. All of that stuff. It's www.griffinair.net. Phone number is 5050-AIR, 804-505-0247, 5050-AIR. And yeah, we'd love to earn your business. Thank you.